This is the Average Guy Network, and you found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 314, recorded on June 15th, 2017. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorites, tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the Average Guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. A little warm today, but Mike, how about the storms that blew through last night?
Weird. Like, there was a post on the neighborhood app like, hey, you might want to check your roofs. Hail actually came through, and a bunch of people are getting their roofs replaced from the insurance company because, and it was only, I didn't even know what happened, to be honest.
No, it was weird. It was in that weird, like 3 a.m. kind of thing where if you're a heavy sleeper, you just sleep right through it. But it did, wind blew, did some damage, blew some stuff down here. And of course, that time of year here in Bellevue, here in Nebraska. And of course, we post a show with world-class show notes out at the AverageGuy.tv. Don't forget, you can also join us live on the live mobile app. But you could be doing that right now if you have the app installed on your iPhone or Android device of choice. Actually, iOS or Android, either one of those works well. Head out to either one of the stores, search Home Gadget Geeks, download it. It's free. You can listen live. That's really the best way to do it. However you're listening to the show otherwise, that works great. But if you want to listen to us live on the road, low bandwidth, and it works really well, head out to homegadgetgeeks.com and get that. And, of course, we thank LastPass for their sponsorship of that. And Amber's coming back here in a couple weeks, so we'll be excited to have her on. Don't forget, we're commercial-free both on YouTube and Spreaker now. So if you well, we've been that way for a while, but of course we're doing that. It's kind of a little freaky out there on YouTube. So your sponsorship, whether you do it through Patreon or using the Amazon affiliate link, and that's working again. And so don't forget, head out to the AverageGuy.tv and just click on the Amazon. There's a banner right there. It just says Amazon, whatever. Just click on it before you buy. It really helps us out. It's going to be a couple months. It takes Amazon about 3 months for that stuff to catch up. And so we won't be able to do anything right away for the Tech Scholarship Fund. But if you're interested in helping out, it's a great way to do it. Both links for both Patreon and that out at the AverageGuy.tv. And we appreciate you doing that for us. All right, some fun media and a media show tonight. I got John Biggs with me. And John, great to have you on the show. Great to see you. I finally got to meet you just a couple of weeks ago during Christian's graduation, but welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
No, it's good to have you. Like I said, it was good to see you. I don't, when I travel the country, I always try and meet, I try and meet people when I do it. Of course, we got to do it for Christian's graduation. Again, Christian's out there. So, John, maybe I should have you on every week. I ought to get Christian out here. Holy cow. He actually came out for Home Gadget Geeks, but it was fun to meet you. Speaking of that, Christian and I will be doing Cyber Frontiers again, where he's just working one job now, and that's pretty cool. Just one job. What a slacker.
Right?
So we'll be cranking Cyber Frontiers back up, and we've got an episode coming up this Tuesday. So that is June. We'll get things kicked off again June 20th, 8 p.m. Central, just like this show. If you're listening live, we'll have you to come out and join us live again for that. Christian will catch us up on all the things that he's doing, and we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk about what's going on in the world of cybersecurity. John, we want to have you on because you're in our community. You're kind of our TV tuner guy. Like you presented on this when you came to the Home Service Show meetup last year. And I'll be honest, like I've never tuned a TV, like ever. And I never even thought about doing it. But when you do it, like it makes it better. And so can you talk a little bit about let's dive in. Why do I even need to tune don't they just come ready out of the box?
So going back to the old CRT days, where you had the red, green, and blue electron beams essentially hitting the screen. If you didn't have your TV aligned, there were like rings on the back of there that you would turn and align where the beams would hit the phosphor. And when I first got into this, I had a tube TV, and you would put text up on the TV, and you could see in the center, it would be good. But on the edges, you would see like 3 lines of text, one red, one green, and one blue. It was just a mess, right? You didn't really realize how better it could be. So then you would go in there and just mess around with those with the right calibration patterns, get those beams aligned, and your TV would look better. That's only part of it, but that's how it got started for me anyway.
I was gonna say, I don't know, like I don't know how I survived for the last 40 years.
So there's
I didn't even know that was an option. I didn't know that was something you could even do.
Well, you really shouldn't.
Oh,
Because
okay.
Now you're dealing with a live cathode ray tube with lots of voltage.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I was like trying to move these things with little sticks, so I wasn't touching. Yeah. I wouldn't do that today, but we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Today we've got HD TVs. When I first started doing this with HD TVs, in order to do this calibration, you would have to go into the Secret Service menu. And there are codes online you can put in the remote control and pop up all these other things inside your TV settings you can get to. And those settings were hidden back in 2000 when I really started doing this. Today, those are accessible through the user menu, and they're called things like white balance is the primary one. There's something called a color management system where you can adjust the primary colors, the red, green, and blue, right? The real thing is you can't mess with this unless you have the right equipment, or else you're just going to make things worse.
No, people try to eyeball it, right? I mean, you can, if you don't, you could go in there and kind of mess around with it to eyeball it, but you're shaking your head now.
It's just going to be a mess, right? Before you do any of this stuff, real thing is write down all the settings so you can always go back. But back to your original question, why in the heck would you do this, right? So the idea is that for two things. One, you can make the TV, like I described earlier, the best it could be, right? Get those errors out. And then when you get to the heart of the actual calibration with the grayscale, and I've got some screenshots I can show you, you're trying to calibrate to a standard. And that standard, everything that's recorded, movies especially, the equipment and cameras used to record are calibrated to a standard so that you have consistency in what you're trying to do if you're the director. And when it's recorded and then adjusted in post-production or whatever to get to the director's intent. You know, if the Matrix is supposed to have a green tint, that's how they get that, right? And when you watch the Matrix, you ideally should be watching with a green tint, not a blue tint. So that's why you would do it. So your other question is, why don't they come already done that way? And most of that gets into how TVs are bought, right? So how do most people buy a TV? They go to Best Buy and they look around, they say, haha, I like that one. Well, the one they like is usually one that has the contrast cranked up really bright, right? And it just stands out amongst the others. So if you actually went into Best Buy, which is surrounded by big fluorescent lights, so you're not in an ideal viewing environment, and you had a calibrated TV, it would look awful. And the one next to it that was in what they call torch mode would really stand out and pop, right? But it wouldn't be accurate, but it would look better there in Best Buy. And when you get it home, if you really were paying attention, you'd notice that, you know, there isn't a lot of detail in the blacks. There is, you know, in the shadows, things just get wiped out. If you're looking at the sky, instead of seeing clouds and layers, you just get a big white blob, right? You can fix all that and get it back to, again, the best that these TVs can be. And what's interesting, especially these days, the quality of TVs is just so high that you don't have to buy the top of the line TV to get an incredibly good picture. You can buy, like Vizio is a really good name brand now that's a cheaper brand. Calibrate that up and it's a really good looking picture.
Really? I mean, so they've kind of taken it on the chin of being the cheapest, you know, kind of the Walmart version of TVs. Are you saying I go with Vizio and that'd be all right?
So and you gotta go read the reviews, right?
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, there are really good Vizio TVs out there. So the way I buy a TV is I don't even watch it. I don't even look at it, right? I go online, I read, trying to think what the name will come to me, but the magazines, right? And then Sound of Vision, they do TV reviews, and you go online and look, and consistently you'll see which are the better brand TVs. A lot of the podcasts I listen to talk about things like that. Home Theater Geeks over on the Twit Network, lots of things like that. And AVS forums where I spend a ton of time just reading about all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, how often are we really buying TVs, to be honest, right? I mean, it's not like every day we're, you know, it's like coffee, you know, we're not buying a 55-inch, you know, TV every day. And so, you know, I imagine just like anything else, it's one of those things that's probably worth a week or two of some research on what's currently being sold, what, you know, are there things in particular, like when I'm reading the reviews, or things in particular that I'm looking for that will kind of clue me into like, this is a good quality TV?
Yeah, the reviewers will talk about how well it calibrates, right? And how close they can get it to the standard. There are they're trying to achieve there. And as far as, it's interesting, you say we don't buy TV every day, right? And if you think back to our time when we started buying computers, how often did we buy a computer? It was like every 2 or 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't know about you, but how much did we spend on a computer when we bought it?
Well, quite a bit, but they've come down.
It was $3,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Every computer I bought, no matter what year it was, as technology, the one I wanted was $3,000. Today they're a little bit lower, but it was interesting. That was the rule. How often did we buy a TV back then? Every 8 years, 10 years, once a lifetime. Yeah.
Right.
And now it's kind of flipped, right? Because computers are so powerful now. I'm still running my 2009 Windows Home Server box and it's fine. TVs, well, we went through standard def, went to the flat panels, went to HD TVs, and now we're into 4K. So you're not buying a TV every 2 years, but every time the technology changes, it's almost, you'd want to do that to keep up, right?
Yeah. So then are you only calibrating once then? So you buy the TV, you bring it home, you calibrate it, that TV should be good? Or is that resetting itself at all? Or when do I need to recalibrate it?
Yeah, so I'll talk about plasmas because that's what I've dealt with mostly. So when you take a plasma out of the box and you start using it, the phosphors, they're in there. The different colors of phosphors will age differently. So now I don't have specific details, but like the red ones will, last a little longer than the blue ones or something like that, right? So out of the box, what people do, and again, it depends on how much of a geek you are, people will take their brand new TVs, and now they do it with OLEDs, and run slideshows on them, full screen, and just cycle through colors for like 100 hours, 200 hours before they even watch TV. Right?
Wow.
And then they'll go.
And that's even on OLEDs?
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those philosophical things. Right? You don't really have to do that. Okay, don't do it. Right. So that's the way I look at calibration. I like it better the way it was. Okay, watch it the way it was. And enjoy your fluorescent green grass during football season if that's what you like. Right. That doesn't make you bad. It just makes you wrong. Right? So,
I'm worried now that I'm going to fall into that category. I'm going to go to calibrate my TV now, and I'm going to be like, okay, I was way off.
So, and that's okay, right? Because then you're fixing it. The bad news is once you do this, you can't enjoy any other TV.
Okay.
Right. So, and lessons learned too. Like if you go to your friend's house and they say, "Hey, how's my TV look?" They don't really want you to tell them. I learned that the hard way. They're not asking.
They want you to say, "Oh, fantastic!"
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
So,
awesome.
A couple things. So, you can do. When you talk about calibration, there's really two things. And Mike, we were talking a little bit in the pre-show. There's calibration discs. I should have had one sitting here next to me, but they'll put up test patterns, right? And that's what you work from. And you've seen them, the color bars. It's the standard test pattern.
Yeah, like one will go like white to black really slow.
Yep, got that.
Colors on it, and
then they'll have the different color bars on the top and the little squares at the bottom, right? So those test discs come with usually a set of blue filter that you look through. TVs today actually have a blue only mode. You can turn off the different guns and make it only display blue, and that's actually more accurate than the filter. And what you want to do is the areas on those color bars that are white, they'll be blue, of course, but there'll be different shades of blue, and you adjust the color until some of them will match. And you'll say, okay, I've got the color set. Then the inner pair will adjust the tint in the same way.
Okay.
So that's how you adjust your color and your tint. And then the gray that you mentioned, there are test patterns that show different levels of brightness from, I'll say 16 as the black standard up to 235 and up to 255 for solid white. And as you adjust the contrast, you adjust the level of white that you can see. So you adjust that till you can see the most of those individual steps. And then there's a similar pattern that is focused on the black levels. So you adjust your brightness, ironically, to adjust the black level till you can get, you don't see any change in that 16 level on the test pattern. And then you've got your black level set correctly. So that without using test equipment, that's how to get as close as you can.
Okay.
And then today on digital TVs, there's a sharpness, right? You can run that all the way to 0, and that's good. Good.
So then if I do that on this TV, so let's say I have my TV in my living room, I do this test. If I move it to a different room, let's say down to the basement where my basement is not a walkout, so it's a lot darker down there. Yeah. Does the light in the room affect the setting on these TVs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, it will affect not the color so much, but the contrast and the brightness. Yeah, okay. That'll absolutely change. So you want to go in and tweak that. And some people, and I am not one of these, some people will actually set a mode on their TV for daytime viewing and another one for nighttime viewing. For that reason.
Okay.
I'm not
yeah, because it's going to change a lot, I would imagine, you know. Because one thing I noticed, I think I heard that it reduces the eye strain sometimes, because sometimes you don't realize it. But is it the whites? Is it the brightness? What's causing that eye strain that this is fixing? Because I noticed when I did it just through the Xbox, I didn't do a sophisticated one. It did help a little bit. I noticed at night I wasn't like squinting almost.
Yeah, well, you're adjusting the amount of light that's hitting your eye from the TV, right? So if you're adjusting that down, it's not as bright. That goes back to that torch mode we talked about.
Right.
If you took that TV and plopped it in the middle of your living room at night with the lights out, after about 15 minutes, you're going to be squinting, right? After about an hour, it's like not going to be fun. You want to adjust that to what they call 100 nits, or I think it's 29 foot Lamberts if you do the commercial or the conversion. And you can measure that with equipment as well, right? So that's when you need something like this,
right?
Which is a
so describe for our audio only listeners, describe that and hold it back up again.
Okay, yep. So what I got here is a camera essentially that goes, and it's got a weight on the back over the USB cable. So it's USB, plugs in your computer, and it hangs down over your TV screen, and the camera sits right up against the screen itself. And then software, you can put up test patterns that have different levels of brightness. So different grayscale steps, 10% bright, 20%, all the way up to white, 100% white windows, right? So that's displayed on the TV. Then you have software, which will take readings off of that sensor and turn that into numbers or visual display. So then you can adjust the level of brightness on your TV to get into the standard, like I was saying, 29 foot Lamberts, or nowadays they're pushing up a little bit higher. And depending on the brightness of your room, Mike, for my living room, I usually go to 35 or 36, sometimes even 40 foot Lamberts, depending on how bright the room is. And then once you set that, so there's a bright, it's like what I'm trying to think what it's called on the TV, cell brightness, you'll see it called.
Okay.
It's like the brightness of the actual panel. And then once you get that set for 100% white, you can adjust the contrast and the brightness on the user controls we were talking about. So that'll get you pretty much people say 85% there, right?
So that device being just a lot more accurate than maybe your eye would be if you threw up the patterns yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
So then where we would go next with this device is it actually reads the level of red, green, and blue coming off the screen as well. That makes that gray pattern. And if you put that up there like 50, 70% gray and go into your user settings and run green up to as high as it'll go, you'll see that gray turn to a greenish tint, right? So the idea is get this gray, and I'll show you a screen share in a minute. You'll see it before, and you'll see that as you take these measurements across the spectrum from 10% brightness all the way to 100, that this red, green, and blue are different levels all the way across there. And the idea is, how do we get all these, bring them down together so you get one flat line, get consistent gray all the way across. And the software will also measure the error that you have from the standard. So I can go ahead and try to do a screen share now if that's
helpful.
You're
doing that, John, tell me what's the name of that device?
So the software I use is called Cowman from SpectraCal. And this device is the C6. You can get different sensors. You can get them off of Amazon as well. You don't have to go to Cowman. So there's Spider is one, and X-Rite makes another one that's pretty good.
Expensive, cheap? What are we looking at price-wise?
It depends. So the cheaper ones are $100, $200. This one here was like $600, right? So
wow,
it's a hobby.
Right, no kidding. That's definitely a hobby.
Yeah. So I'm driving a car from 2004. What's that?
Not a hobby if you charge your friends.
Yeah,
there you go.
I do it for free, actually.
I know.
That's what I do for fun.
Right.
So
right
can you guys see this now?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You bet. You're in the main screen.
And can you see the mouse moving around?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right here where I'm moving, that's the this is a friend of mine's televisions that I calibrated, did that before, and you'll see right here at 0. All right, so that's the goal, and you'll see green at the low end is above 0, and at the high end's a little bit below, but blue is all the way above and red is way above, right? And if you look over here on the left side of the screen, this is the error measurement that's being generated by the TV. And if you can see, there's actually around at the bottom, it goes up to like 12, right? 1 to 12, 0 to 12. At 3, there's a green line. So if your error is below 3, then humans can't tell that there's any difference there. So the goal here is get these errors below 3. If you're at yellow, around 5, yeah, you can start to see that it's not the best it could be. Up at 10, your TV isn't looking real good. So the goal is, how do you get this, bring these lines together with the white balance adjustments, right? So if you go in there, you'll see at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, there's places where you can adjust red, green, and blue levels. And what you're doing is adjusting the amount of output of each of those levels hitting the screen. So you bring them all down together. And when you do that, then over here, your error level, of course, goes down, right?
Gotcha.
So let me try to get to the after, right? So take a good look now. Remember this before. Remember here, these errors, so 100 is pure white, and it's almost up at 10, right? That's how far off this is. So let me go back and try to share the other screen.
And then while you're doing that, so how long is this process taking? So from start to finish, is this a 1 hour job? Is this a 5 hour job? I mean, what are we talking about?
This is usually 2 to 3 hours, depending on.
That's a good investment of time.
Yeah, it's fun, right? And in addition to the grayscale, you're also doing color. I don't have the color charts up. We can just keep going. Grayscale is the main thing. Color is also fun. You're just moving dots around. It's kind of the same thing. You're shooting for that goal of the standard, right? So depending on how much you want to chase perfection, it can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. And Mike, circling back to your other question from a while ago, which was, how often do you do this? Once a year, maybe, right? You do the first one, that's the big one, then maybe 6 months or a year, depending on what you want to do. And people certainly aren't going to pay for this once a year, because the cost is like $300, right? And you can get it when you buy a TV from Magnolia and Best Buy. You can buy a calibration to go with it.
So that would mean, you have a professional come out. That's going to cost you $300.
Yeah, you have a professional from Geek Squad trained. Yeah, and I'm not a professional, right? This is just a hobby. I'm messing around, and I think I'm doing it right, but maybe I'm not, right? But it seems to look pretty good from here. If you look at the afters, you can see I've been able to bring all those lines together for the red, green, and blue across the spectrum. Are you guys seeing the screen share?
Yeah.
You bet. You bet.
And then you see the errors over here, all down below 2. So
wow.
This is pretty sweet.
I mean, that's so for our audio listeners, it's a drastic change. You had almost a bar graph that you saw bars, and now you're not seeing bars for the level of error.
Yep.
And I noticed in the chart on the bottom right, is that doing the same sort of thing? Because I noticed a bunch of different, it's almost like a scatter plot. And those were moved down and to the right on the first time. And then in the middle, I guess, is pure white. And they're almost all nailing that pure white.
In the middle is the standard.
Is the standard? Okay.
Yeah, that's what you're going for. So you want every dot to be in there. And depending on how far they are off, there'll be various places else on the scatter plot. The center of the dot, I believe, is called D6500, and it's the color of white that they're shooting for. And you'll see this outlier here. That's probably 10% or 0%. The lower levels are harder to calibrate. So the real professionals, they don't use this kind of meter that I have. They have an actual, it almost looks like a camera kind of thing that sits back from the screen. And those things cost like $20,000, $30,000.
Wow.
I mean, so that's for your movie theaters, right? That's where they're using those, or are there people that use some of those for their home TVs?
So I think let's see if I can hit stop sharing now. Should I hit that?
Yeah, that's fine. You bet. Yeah, we got it.
Okay. So the people that use that are like the real professional calibrators, like Robert Heron and Scott Wilkinson, who hosts Home Theater Geeks. And folks from SpectraCal, when you buy this C6, what they do for these kind of meters, they also sell the X1s. They'll calibrate those against those expensive, super accurate, essentially scientific instruments. So these meters will be calibrated so that they are showing the same results as those expensive meters. But they will drift. You're supposed to get these calibrated themselves once a year. I don't do that, like once every 5 years maybe, because again, I'm not a professional. I'm just doing this for fun. And it ends up, it's looking better than it was when it started.
Right. So when you're talking about the difference between the version you have, the C6, and let's say one of us just wants to go out and get started and grab the $100 one, is this a hobby where it's a complete waste of money to go for that? Just if you're going to do it, hop into this price range, or are they actually okay?
Yeah, they're good. They're good to get started and play around. There's also free software. And I had a bunch of links that I brought to the Home Server Show meetup. I'm trying to think what the thing was called. I think it's HCFR is the acronym for this free software. And that's how I got started. Was I went and bought an X-Rite sensor, and then I downloaded this free software and played around with it. And after a while, like a couple of years, I finally said, all right, I'm doing this enough. I'm just going to buy the SpectraCal. So much easier to understand and use. So,
okay. So easier, higher quality, but you can still get started for $100 and see if it's a hobby that you want to get into.
Yep. And actually, play around with your TV and see if it makes an improvement. And the standard I use for, does this really make a difference? Every time I've done this, the spouse of the person that I've calibrated has said, yeah, that looks really good. Right. And if they can
wife acceptance factor, right? That's what we've talked about.
Yeah. It's funny. My wife will laugh at me. She says, you spend more time watching calibration patterns than you do actually watching TV.
You don't even get to enjoy the fruit of your labor.
But,
well, you are enjoying it.
Yeah,
you
that's the fun for me. So, and here's another tip, right? Everyone can use this. So, had this conversation. Why do we need to buy a TV when we hardly ever watch TV? And why do we need to buy this really expensive TV? It's like, well, honey, we don't watch TV very often, right? Right. So when we do watch it, it means it's something special, right? Yeah. So if we're doing something special, don't you want that to be the best it possibly can be? So that's why we need to buy an expensive TV.
That'd be great. That's a perfect argument.
John Ken was asking in the chat room, the $100 version. I have the Spider 5 up. Is this the $100 version? Do I have the right? If you could take a peek and look at my screen,
so this is one of them, right? And there's another one called the X-Rite. It's X-RITE.
Okay. Here we'll look that up in real time. X-RITE. Color checker.
Let's see.
Yeah,
that doesn't look right.
This one, no.
Yeah,
is this one?
Go.
That one right there?
Yes.
No, this one right there, right? The color monkey?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I've not used this, but look, it looks awfully similar to the one I have, doesn't it?
Yeah, 154 on Prime today, so a little more expensive.
Yep.
There are some cheaper versions of that there if you want to go with the purple, or that's the pink. But there's some other options. So if you're looking for, here we'll leave it on.
And you can use this. People use this to calibrate their computer monitors too. If you're doing some photo work.
Yeah, that's where I see it
that
being very important. My family is a family of like graphic designers, and seeing the true color, like what that's actually going to be, extremely important. I didn't even think about the fact that they could calibrate their screen.
And I haven't messed with this, but the way I think that it works is the sensor goes over the screen, just like I described, and then there's software it runs on your computer, and then the computer will automatically put the colors up on the screen, and they know what they should be on the sensor readings. And I believe it'll change what they call a lookup table for what color is displayed on the screen. Wow. So it automatically calibrates your screen for you.
Got it.
So,
well, that makes sense.
Again, I haven't played with that, but I think that's how it works.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. I have never. Listen. I watched your demo when we were at Home Server Show meetup, And I just I never thought about it. And now I'm intrigued. I have to have you out to Nebraska so you can tune my. You coming through? Hey, you're getting close. So maybe sometime you'll have to drive back.
Yeah, it's true. And coming to meet up again this year.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes, Jim's not going. Come on,
yeah, I know.
So, and if you remember at last meetup, I sort of pseudo calibrated Dave McCabe's television there.
Well, there we go. Everyone's going to bring their TVs to meet up, and we'll just get it done.
I actually, Vinyl Freak, I think it was 2 years ago, he brought his TV and his whole media center setup. So, the original plan was bring it back and let's calibrate it while we're there.
But it's a couple out. Well, okay, so you're in the hotel room. We're at the office at Microsoft.
Yep.
You calibrate it for that room, which is really bright and lots of windows. Tim takes it home. Isn't it out of calibration at that point?
The grayscale's still accurate.
Okay.
What's changed is that brightness and contrast that you'd have to adjust. And what's interesting, and I still can't believe this, I did this calibration for this one person I work with, and at their house, opposite from the TV was a whole bank of like 10-foot tall windows, and sun was streaming in. You ideally want to do this dark. Half the screen was wiped out from the sun hitting directly on it, and I'm like messing with it. It still worked. Oh. Now, is it as best as it could be? Probably not, but I was shocked that it still worked.
Oh. Yeah. So did you put it in the spot that wasn't getting wiped out from the sun?
Yeah.
Basically? Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense. No, that makes sense. Anything else, John? As we Mike, anything else? All of a sudden, I have this urge to go calibrate my TV.
So, I know. I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna pay the $100, but I'm gonna go do the Xbox version again because the Xbox is really good because it's interactive, right? You got a controller. It says, it's very interactive, which helps me out. Tells you exactly what menus to open. Says, open this menu now. Okay, now do you have that open? Now start adjusting it until this or this happens. So for the extreme novice like me, I've done that once. It's a good way to get started, I think, into it, and just to notice the difference, because it was enough of a difference that now on this show I'm like, oh, I can imagine what pro stuff does, because even just doing the simple version was noticeable.
So 2 other points, Jim. If you want to jump back on Amazon and search for calibration discs, there's Spears and Munsell that will pop up. It's usually like $25 for the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I got it up here. I was just looking at it. That's funny that you mentioned that. I'll bring that up here while you're talking about it.
Okay. And then the other thing, when I did the meetup show, I said, okay, here's what I'm not calibrating, and that's HD TV, or I'm sorry, high dynamic range television, right, for the 4Ks.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is like the Wild West right now. The standards, I think, were finally agreed upon after meetup. They were just getting to the UHD, Ultra HD standards. So they've got a wider color space to calibrate to. And then the other big thing is the high dynamic range. So in the standard dynamic range for HD TV, we talked about those 100 nits, the level of brightness as being white. And then at HDR TVs, the standard is 10,000 nits, which is crazy. Like nothing can do that. So now you run into a problem because LEDs, Samsungs will get up to, I think, 2,000 nits now. The OLEDs will get up to 750 nits.
But you want 10,000? Wow.
But it's not the whole screen, right? So it's just little dots like stars or whatever to enhance the picture. But here's the problem. How do you take an Ultra HD disc that's been standardized for whatever brightness, 5,000 nits, whatever, and play that back on a TV that only goes to 2,000 or a TV that only goes to 750? So then they have to do what's called tone mapping to say, okay, and we won't spend a lot of time here, but you can imagine, okay, how are we going to do this? If our TV only goes to 2,000 and we need to go to 10,000, well, we could like stretch that curve out so that when the 10,000 comes up, we're actually hitting our peak of 2,000, right? And then fill in between there. Or you could say, okay, everything above 2,000, we're just going to peg at 2,000 and be. So that's not defined, and different TV manufacturers do it different ways. So then you also have to have expanded sensors now, right? So this thing that used to only go to, pick a number, 300 nits needs to go to 2,000 now. So that's more expensive. And the software, how do you, adjust your software and start making these measurements? And then as a calibrator, what do you adjust? And all that's really not well defined right now.
So give it maybe another year. I mean, how long do these standards take to kind of roll out?
It's actually coming faster than I thought it would. And I would say in another year, it would be set.
Okay.
The standard's there, but then it's like, how are the manufacturers going to settle into those standards? And different ones are going different ways, but then how do we interpret those and what do we want to do with it? So lots of fun in the future, lots of fun reading, right? So Jim, that reminds me, I dug out my strengths finders before the show. My number one strength finder, learner.
Yeah. Learner. I like it.
All I do is read about this stuff in AVS forums.
No, that's good. That's good. We need that. My job here on Home Gadget Geeks is to find you guys, because I'm the arranger, activator, woo, communication, right? That's what I do. I get people talking, so I need to find you guys to be able to do it. What do you remember what the other 4 are? So
I got them right here, right?
Yeah. Rattle them off for me.
All right, number 2, harmony.
Oh yeah.
Number 3, consistency. 4 is responsibility, and 5 is achiever.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. All right, that's good. That responsibility is really a good one. I don't have any of that either. It's a miracle. It's like a miracle. I've done 300 of these shows.
So you just talk and goof off a lot, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's really, I make stuff up. That's kind of my job. So
fake podcast.
You can't take me seriously for anything. He's going, is he? I don't know. It's questionable, but well, all good.
But we feel good when you're telling us all this.
Totally.
Stuff.
Yeah, I've got you. That Woo Communications got you pretty snowed. So it's pretty great. John, some great stuff. And for those who couldn't make Home Server Show meetup last year, that's a little bit of kind of what we talked about right during your session there. You kind of regave that. So I think Dave has already posted that information for the Home Server Show meetup. I think we're calling it the Reset meetup now, this time or something like that. And so if you head over to the Home Server Show forums, what I think now is the Reset forums. I haven't been over there since he changed the name, but I think that's all set. Is that
so? Hashtag last beat up ever.
Yes. It is the last one. And, I might, because since he announced it's last ever, I might pull some strings. I know. Yeah. I think I'm going to pull some strings.
Jim, for your show notes, if you want, I can send you all the links that I have.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, we found some of them, but it'd be awesome if you throw them.
I actually have it in a Google Doc, so I can just share it to you real quick.
Yeah. That'd be great. Sometime this weekend, my production schedule. John, we wanted to talk a little bit about Plex, because all 3 of us have kind of jumped on the Plex bandwagon as of late. Can you talk, first of all, let's just walk through your Plex setup. So talk about the equipment you're using, including your home server.
Sure. So my home server, which I built in 2009, and because I got started on all this actually listening to you and Dave McCabe on Home Server Show.
I apologize.
It's back when I got into Media Center, and I got into Media Center because a number of reasons, but essentially I ended up with this really crappy Comcast DVR that was unusable. And at the same time, the Seton card came out that allowed us to actually begin to use Media Center with cable cards, right? So found Entertainment 2.0 with Josh Pollard, Richard Gunther. Learned a lot about Media Center, built Media Center. And we'll come back to why I switched to Plex. But my Plex box starts with the HD Home Run Prime, which has a cable card in it with 3 tuners. That goes into, the stuff is stored on my home server. So my home server has, I did the full fauché, as they call it.
Oh man, I haven't heard that in a long time.
So I got the Rocket RAID card, and I got 6 2-terabyte hard drives. Did a RAID 1 array for 2 of them to put documents on, data. And then the remainder of them I use for pictures, movies, that stuff. So I got 9
how much total? 9. Okay.
9 terabytes for video, 2 terabytes for the documents. So right now I'm pushing all of my Plex recordings from the Plex DVR onto the home server. And then I can access that. I have the, and I might just, while you guys talk, I'll jump and see what that piece of software is that I was telling you about. That actually is the 10-foot interface for Plex on HT PCs that I'm running in my living room.
Yeah.
And
No, that'd be good. Hey, but let me hold on before you do that. Let me back up just a smidge. So, let me just remind folks, if you're listening, we've been talking about Plex off and on over the last couple months because they've had a lot of great news. But for those who haven't been paying attention, they've been doing a lot over there at Plex to kind of bring up, come up to speed on what they're doing. And so they most recently launched kind of a DVR beta, which would allow you to take Plex. Had always been just watch movies, get your photos or whatever. It had been just kind of a basic. If you had the media that existed already, that's all you could do. They launched the beta. It was closed for a while, open again. Supported just a handful of devices, but most recently they have opened that up to a ton of devices. And when I say devices, I mean those network tuners. We're Silicon Dust. A lot of the listeners to this show and Home Server Show have bought those Silicon Dust, but there's a bunch of others. Mike, you got a USB version of one, right?
Yeah, the Hoppage is the name of it. It's like a Win TV. So you can get a USB. It's got 2 tuners in it. Works out just well. It's like $60, I think, for that. So it was a little bit cheaper than the HD home runs.
Network tuners are $100, let's just say.
Right.
I think something like that. And so they started supporting just a few, and now they've opened more and more and more. At the same time, they're getting the DVR capabilities running. And so we've been testing that for a while of recording. That's been available for a couple months now. They just recently made an announcement where it's available on iOS, and I think they'll start supporting more and more of those going forward. So anyways, that brings you up to speed on where we're at, John.
Okay, so that piece of software I run on my home theater PC in my living room is called Plex Media Player. And I just installed it and it just worked. I had my Windows Media Center running on the same computer. So I had a Logitech Harmony One remote control. So I had the IR receiver hooked up to my home theater PC. So I just brought this up and it just worked. I didn't have to adjust anything. I didn't have to, customize the Harmony. Just works and it's awesome. The only downside, and I don't know if I told you this the other day, but I was looking through the Plex forums, and one of the topics the question was, does Plex get paid by the click? Because to move through this, it is just click after click. Get into the series, get into the episode list, get into the episode you want. Press play again, right? So it's not user friendly and move back and forth in. But it does the job and it looks good and it just works.
Yeah, I agree. That I didn't really think about it until you said the clicks. It's really true on any app, really. Even on some of them are better than others, but on Fire Stick especially, it is quite a few clicks to get to what you want. But I think they're trying to get past that by having that dashboard where it's what's up next, right? So you can say, okay, without jumping into the series, I can automatically see that episode 7 is what I need to click on, and it's right there in front of you. So they're doing a little bit better job, but you're right, so many clicks just to get down to the play.
Yep. And so Mike, we were talking earlier about ComSkip, right? So what I do is I have this go into a folder on my Windows Home Server, and I'm running MCE Buddy. And MCE Buddy is watching that folder. And when it sees a new recording come in, I've got ComSkip. I run the donators version of that. It's interfaced with MCE Buddy. So it'll process the show, remove the commercials, and then actually cut the show up and remove the commercials and jam it together as a new recording. So when I started this, I actually had 2 folders set up where I would preserve the original. And then I also had another one with the commercials cut out. And this thing has been so rock solid, I just stopped saving that original copy. I just have the commercial cut out now. And it's solid.
Yeah, and I love that. It really, it makes a difference. It cuts out the commercials, and it also makes those file sizes way smaller. Because when it's pulling it down, Jim and I were talking about this in the pre-show. His network tuner, it gives him a .ts file, and I get a .mkv. Both of them are huge. We talked about being about 6 to 8 gigs for an hour's worth of TV. So you're right. I run MCE Buddy. I took off ComSkip because I was having some issues, but I think I need to give it a shot again. Maybe I wasn't giving it a fair shake, but it really does. It compresses those, runs in the background. And the thing I like about it is that for me, the way I have mine set up is it doesn't even have to move the files when it's done, because I just have it looks through my entire, so my Plex TVs folder, it just looks in there, grabs it, and then replaces it. It doesn't even move it, doesn't store it anywhere different. So Plex in the end doesn't really have to do much different because it's saved right to the same location. When I go in there, because Plex, the thing I love about Plex, if you're using it to record TV, is it creates a great file structure. When you go into where your files are, it does a great job of organizing those by seasons and names it the correct name. So I like MCE Buddy that you can just let it keep that structure, that name, and simply do the conversion and remove the commercials if you want.
Yep. The other thing, talking about eliminating clicks. So I noticed I had this thing called, I set it up, I just made a folder called Plex DVR without commercials, right? So when in this Plex Media player that would pop up on my TV, I have HD tracks music, I've got other music, I got CD rips, I got movies, on and on and on. And this thing was like 10 clicks down on the file structure. So to get to TV, it's like, da, 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 da. So I'm like, okay, how do I fix this? And I went in and changed it from Plex DVR to a Plex DVR. And that popped it right up to the top because you're using 8.
Right. Yep, I've done that before quite a few times, trying to get that back up. Yeah.
Drashna is mentioned in MB. Is that how you pronounce it? EMBY?
Mm-hmm.
MB?
Yes. It started out, it was Media Browser as a plugin for Media Center. So MB. Yep.
Now on their website, looks like they've got quite a bit of functionality when we think about what's going on with Plex. They got some, they even mentioned Chromecast. Like I was trying to Chromecast from Plex iOS off my server because I thought, oh, this would work really nice to be able to, because my wife watches live shows, and it would be a lot easier to remove the Media Center PC and just have her stream it and Chromecast it. Plex is not supporting Chromecast yet on the iOS. Looks like MB is.
For what? I Chromecast all the time from Plex.
For live.
For live.
Yeah,
okay,
live TV. No, I'm talking live TV. Yeah,
that's good to know.
So are these two comparable? I haven't tried MB
They're
yet.
super comparable. It comes down to, I was giving Drashna a hard time. It's one of those, like, when they get so close to each other, pretty much you just got to pick one and go for it. But he's right. MB has had the live TV for a little bit longer. Just depends on I think it just depends on what you guys started with. Like you said, it used to be an extension for Media Center.
So Jim, a couple other things I want to mention. So with live TV, before Plex came out with the live TV, there were plugins that you could put into Plex. And one of those was that did support live TV. And I just installed that. And again, it just worked. Now, the interface isn't the best. You got to go in, you can pick your channels off of the HD Home Run, but it would put up it would have the menu of what was on now and like a summary of the show. And you could scroll down through it again with a bunch of clicks and you would get live TV, and it pretty much worked. The real drawback right now that's holding us all back from Plex is lack of a grid guide, right?
Yes.
Just
the way they decided to implement it was not a good guide. It's not the way I want to see things.
Do you guys know the story behind all that? Why there isn't a grid guide? So Rovi, I think TiVo had the original patent for the grid guide. Rovi bought TiVo. Rovi is where you get your grid guide for Media Center and also for your Xbox, right? So if we want a grid guide, we've got to pay for the patent use. And at this point, I'm like, come on, Plex, I'll pay an extra $5 a month if you give me the grid guide.
Right. Yeah, so you're telling me that's owned by one company, that just the ability to put the grid guide.
It's owned by Rovi. Yep.
Huh. Did not know that.
So like Silicon Dust, they also don't have a grid guide. So these companies are trying to figure out, okay, how can we get this information of what's coming up to people?
John, is their DVR solution coming along? I mean, I know they had that Kickstarter, and I haven't heard much beyond that.
Yeah. So I did the Kickstarter. That's actually where I got my HD Home Run Prime, and I just really haven't had time to mess with it. And I was reading the forums for Silicon Dust, and there was a lot of complaints back in the early days, and that's been a while now. And that was the other thing. So after the Kickstarter, it just took forever to get the software releases on the Silicon Dust, and I pretty much just gave up on it. And every now a couple of months, I'd go back and take a look, and people were complaining about something. I've not come back, and Plex came out with their DVR solution. It just works. I don't know that I'll be going back to Silicon Dust, especially if they really get rolling on this live TV stuff.
Well, they make great hardware, and soar with your strengths. It's one of those things. I have two of their tuners. I actually took their I had an old tuner, the old one, the white ones that had separate tuners in them, or separate connections. I just recently took that off the wall. Plex wasn't supporting it. I didn't think it was going to. They eventually did, which is they're supporting almost everything from Silicon Dust now. But I took it off the wall and took it to my son's place. He needed a network tuner, and I thought, well, we'll pass it down to him and and give it to him. And so that's off the wall. So I'm now at a 4, and you would think that's enough, but there are a few nights where I need a 5th or maybe even a 6th to record all the shows that we want. So I may be picking up another one.
Oh. So the other thing that pushed me into the Plex DVR was Comcast. And Comcast, at least in our area, and they're doing this across the country, has changed their container from MPEG-2 to H.264. And when they did that, some of my channels will now, I have no video. So I'll change to the channel and it'll pop up. I'll hear audio and it's just a black screen. And I don't have this problem with Plex DVR. So I had to go through Media Center and actually turn off channels that just plain wouldn't work. So the reason they're doing this is to save bandwidth. And here's the other really, really irritating thing that they're doing. They are down resing to 720p. So everything I record from Comcast is in 720p now.
Meaning everything that goes over your HD home run into Plex is 720?
Everything on my media, everything Comcast broadcast
is
in
through your cable card, through what you're recording on your cable card.
Yeah.
And are you doing over the air at all?
No, I live too far away. I'm probably 30 miles from Baltimore.
Okay.
I'm shocked they can, on the TV side, you're going to notice that difference. So even if you have the box, it's all still compressed down 720.
Yes.
Wow.
And imagine going to a 4K TV now.
Right. It's going to look terrible.
Right? So I've not seen it on 4K TV, but yeah, why in the heck? What are you saving, really? So I don't know what the master plan is, but lots of entertaining reading on AVS forums about that.
Yeah, I need to check into Cox. I was going to look into the HD home run with the cable card solution because I've still got another year and 2 months before I can leave Cox. So I did the math. Doesn't make sense to leave until my 2 years is up. And I just moved into this house and they re-upped me without me thinking about it. So yeah, I need to check with them, but because I think we switched over to their Contour solution. And I don't know if you can actually even get a cable card now that I'm using their whole Contour setup. So we'll see. The over-the-air stuff's fine with me. And really, because we're going to just cut cable off because we have Hulu and everything, Netflix, we have Amazon Prime, all of them. So we don't even watch live TV and especially DVR'd content. Like I said in the pre-show, the only one I really do it for is my son. We record PBS content so that I always have a constant slew of new Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and everything him. So
yeah, so our big channels we watch are Food Network and HGTV primarily. So back to that learner thing.
Oh yeah,
love me some Fixer Upper.
I'm in This Old House, so I have This Old House, This Old House Hour, Ask This Old House.
I didn't know those were still on until I got over the air. I'm like, this is sweet.
No, they're all
those. They're great.
There's the Raja, and Tom, and those guys are out there.
Yeah. So if you jump over to the greenbutton.tv, lots of discussion about, everyone's facing these problems. It's the same thing. People tried upgrading their video cards. That seems to work for some, not the others. Fingers are pointing back and forth. Essentially, I think what it comes down to is that Microsoft isn't going to include the whatever codec they need for Media Center, certainly at this point. But again, I have no issues with Plex. One of the things I want to try when I have time is maybe take something like a Sharky's codec pack and install that and see if that fixes it for Media Center. But the real race will be.
That's local to you, John, because we're here on Cox in Nebraska. We're not having those problems with Media Center.
This is Comcast.
Right. Yeah. Just so listeners are clear, that's a regional or at least Cox has been doing some crazy things, Mike. So I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled some of that trickery as well. Media Center still working for us really, really well. In fact, Sarah's on it right now. We have it on a separate, Core i3 PC that just runs. But I am definitely looking to replace it because it's going to break at some point, right? It's just going to stop working. Whether the hardware goes or Microsoft stops supporting the guide or some of those kinds of things. And so this journey that Mike and I and you as well are kind of taking are what's the next step? What are we going to do? And it's a wife acceptance factor kind of thing. She's got to be able, this is the one important thing. I've thrown a lot of jankety tech at her. This is one of them that has to work. Like I am not going to throw out a substandard thing that just doesn't work. Plex isn't there yet, but I think, John, it will. These guys are revving super fast, and I think we're going to see some great stuff.
I think so too, and I got to give some kudos to my wife. She's been living in Plex for the last 2 weeks, and
completely.
And she knows how to close out Media Center and bring up the Plex Media Player and click the button 57 times to get to the one show she wants to watch. Right?
What's the name of that 10-foot interface again that you're using?
Plex Media Player. And it's, if you go to Plex's website, it's in there somewhere.
Available for Windows? Is that what it's just a little program? Yeah. We're still not ready. And I'm waiting. I think we have, we need the live. I would like live to work on all devices plus buffering so you can pause it. That's not working. And so, God, it would be great if on Android, that's her phone, if she could just start it on her phone and then Chromecast it, and then the PC is gone. Like at that point, I'm done. We're done serving up. I'm done having a dedicated PC just to run a Media Center interface. That would work great.
I'll probably keep the home theater PC for quite a while because I use it for other things too, like playing high res audio through my stereo system and that kind of stuff. So the other thing we might want to touch on is, why did they start with just iOS, right? We talked about that and theory of starting maybe a little smaller, working the kinks out before they get to the web interface, which most people are using. Right. It'll be curious to see just how quickly the live TV expands for Plex.
Yeah, well, I think that once they figure out and get the kinks worked out on iOS, then I think it just goes snappity snap right on the Android will come out, because it came out on Android TV, so it's there. It's just not there for Android phones yet. And I think I would imagine in a month we'll have an Android phone version. And like I said, it's going to be weird. So if you think about the buffering problem, where's it going to buffer? And so, I want to buffer it on the server, not on the phone. So they got to get that working and get that reliable. We got to get the sync stuff working right. Some of those.
And especially if you store all your stuff on a NAS, but that's not what's running Plex, where is it even buffering in at?
Right.
Yeah.
So more network traffic. But what's interesting about this whole cord cutting movement, two things. First is that we're getting into this over-the-air stuff like it's some new technology, which is my favorite part. I went upstairs and I plugged in the antenna. I'm like, do you know that they send TV through the air for free? You don't have to pay for it. Like, it's fantastic. It's some new novel thing. But I'm going back to it like it is because I'm like, oh man, finally cable prices have gotten so high. And so number two with that is these cable companies are getting smart, though. Pretty much when I called to cancel, even when I do cancel, I'm not even saving that much by getting rid of everything. I have the amount they're going to charge me for my internet speed that I have right now. I mean, add $40 onto that, and I have the Premiere, Contour, 7 boxes, all the channels. I'm like, well, $40 a month. Yeah, that's significant, but okay. I don't know. It's getting less and less so because the cable companies keep hiking up the price for that internet because they know, right? They've got you with those bundles. Because as soon as they start losing those TV deals and then channels start dropping, it's a tumbling effect. So they'll take a hit on TV if they can increase their internet prices, do anything to keep you with, as long as you're subscribed. That's all they care about.
Yep.
I watched a Major League Baseball game, but it wasn't just the game. It was they were flipping between. This was on Twitter last night. They were flipping between games and showing the best baseball of the night, and then they had commentators talking about it in all these special segments. And I thought, this was all on Twitter. I thought, okay, we're definitely moving this direction.
Oh yeah, this is like NFL Red Zone for
Red Zone for baseball.
Yeah, I love Red Zone. I can't watch full games of football anymore. Besides the Huskers, but besides that, because I just want to see scoring. I'm like, man, this is so boring. Like, there is no way I'm going to sit through this whole game.
It's like watching golf, because that's what they do in golf. Like, there's never a single shot that's live. They're only picking the best ones and showing the best stuff that you want to watch. And so it's awesome when they're flipping, on any night, there's probably, 15, 20 MLB games going on. And they were just going, they were showing highlights and, hey, special moment happened. This guy just hit his 1,000th home run or something, whatever. And it was pretty cool. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're there. We have made it. But that being said, Tony had said in chat in Twitter earlier, he was interested in a little bit of the cloud services that Plex is offering. And they've kind of rolled this out, last 6 months or so, where it has, now you can connect it to Dropbox, or you can put your files up in OneDrive, or you can do the Google Drive. Those three are available. I priced them all out, and for 1 terabyte, they're all the same price right now. So it's $9.99 a month, basically. There's some other deals that you can get. Google's just a straight $99 a year if you want to get it that way. Microsoft actually has a pretty good deal. You can get 5 terabytes of storage now in their premium OneDrive offering for $90. Well, let's call it 99, $100, right? If you buy the annual, or $9.99 a month if you do it that way. 5 terabytes will get you some storage in the cloud.
No kidding.
Right? Yeah. So Dropbox is the same way. It's basically $10 for a terabyte out there. I think if I'm going to jump to the cloud and I've got some serious, I checked my movie files. I have 132 gig. So, I don't really need 5 terabytes out there. But John, have you thought about the cloud? I mean, I know you're doing everything, but there could be some convenience of just keeping your movies in the cloud too, right?
I just don't see it, right? Because, if you've got to pay to upload it to the cloud, and with Plex, you have the ability to access it remotely, right? So I've got
and it works like a dream. So easy. Yeah.
I've got my PFSense set up to forward the ports through, and then you can, as Jim, you and I tested out sharing accounts, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I didn't know if you wanted me to say that, so I held off on that.
That's just, back to that learner thing, right? We're just experimenting, trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
But it works. And so I don't understand why I would spend the money on a cloud service, spend the money to upload, my bandwidth to upload it there, and then have to download it again when I can just come right into my server and get it wherever I want in the world.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be some use cases from people who don't want to set up, think about coming to this, you've got a bunch of media, you don't want to set up the NAS. We all come from this home server background where we're crazy about our own local storage. And so we always see that, and we always will. So we'll always see that through the local storage. We love the RAID arrays. We love our Drobos or Synologies or QNAPs, whatever, right? Mike, whatever you currently are running these days. What are you running? FreeNAS?
QNAP.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I was running FreeNAS, but that box was just way too much power for nothing.
Some energy.
Yeah.
But so John, I think we come at it from that perspective. And then, but I could see some folks who are like, well, I'm new to Plex. You can't do any of this recorded TV, right? I mean, it's just movies. It's just what you have recorded,
Are you sure? I mean,
yeah. How would you record? How would you push? If you recorded it locally and then pushed it up to the cloud, you
mean for the cloud service?
Yeah. For the cloud service.
Like, my daughter's off, away from home, and she's watching recorded TV just through back to the server.
Yeah. No, I told my daughter, she's headed down to Northwest Missouri State in the fall, and I told her, okay, we need to get your Plex stuff all set up because if you want to watch local TV, now I don't. She didn't even watch local TV when she lived here. So I'm not sure that's going to do anything for her, but I did offer that, hey, let's set up your own account on Plex. You can access that via your phone from anywhere, using our Plex Pass.
Yep.
All right, Mike, any other thoughts?
Oh, I have server envy. And I got to stop. Sometimes I start talking in the chat about servers and buying that sort of stuff. And you guys started talking about that. And it just gets me way too excited. And then I need to go out and buy things. And so that's where my head's at.
You said you were looking at a Dell?
Yeah, those Dell R710s are just awesome machines. They're huge, but pretty quiet because of how big they are, big enough fans. You can get them on eBay now with dual Xeons. Josh and I were just talking about that I lost this one. He got it for 172 and I had set my max big to 165. So I wasn't quick enough. When you get down to the last second, the computer pretty much just takes over. So I lost by like $6, but $172 for dual Xeons. It had 48 gigs of memory. Pretty good. Two terabyte drives for you. And then obviously there's 8 bays in that thing. So they're nice little servers.
A couple years old. So they're
a couple years old.
Energy.
Jim,
John, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if you remember at Home Server Show, I was lucky enough at the meetup. I was lucky enough to win the 2 5 terabyte drives that Schoondoggy brought. Right.
Oh.
And then so I went out and got a third one. So now I have 3 5 terabyte drives, and I'm just itching to buy a Synology box to put that in. And I was thinking I'd just use that to store all my Plex video. But I haven't taken the jump yet down the Synology.
Haven't done it just yet.
But the drives are sitting there waiting.
Yeah. Well, I've just put some small drives together and used the StableBit drive, drive pools to put those together. I bought a license for that. It's great for that. It works awesome. So I have 5 drives in there, and like you, I've got 3 partitioned one way and 2 partitioned another. And I'm trying to think of what I store. I store something on that smaller partition. Oh, I forget. Maybe it's the virtual stuff. And then do all the Plex TV, both recorded TV and, well, no, the movies are on the Drobo. That's just a easy way to watch the movies. Hey, I'd love to slam those 5 terabyte drives into the Drobo.
Yeah, I bet.
That'd be pretty nice. I still have one terabyte drive in there that I'm gonna have to replace here at some point coming up. But so when you buy the third 5 terabyte drive, how are you gonna rate them? You gonna buy rate card?
Yeah. No, I was going to do the Synology and just get a 4-bay Synology.
Oh, so you're serious about that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Jim, we wouldn't joke about Synology.
Synology's got great stuff.
They do.
They really
do. Yeah, and I think today Drobo's finally fixed itself, which is great. They have righted the ship over there at Drobo, and they are making, and their software is amazing right now. It's crazy how many improvements they've made here in the last year and 2 years now since the new management has been in place. So those guys did a great job.
Right? To be able to come back from a catastrophe like that, that's a rarity.
They have completely fixed the company. It's amazing what they've done, and are really making it at a pretty competitive price. Some good stuff. And then, of course, Synology and QNAP. Those are really the 3 I kind of, when we think about those, the 3 I like to talk about, and the 3 that I think are ready for prime time. Mike, you're on the QNAP. We just mentioned that. So, and you have the 2-bay?
2-bay. Yeah, no fan, nothing. So processing power super low, but for if you're just wanting 2 drives in there, not bad.
Yeah. No, it's a little ARM processor.
Yeah, it was like $75. Can't beat it.
No, right on.
But now those things have come down in price so much. You can get I got my parents 2 or 4-bay. Either way, a Synology, and they've come down in price a lot. And that thing, even just transferring files, blew the pants off my QNAP. I had it set up here. I was setting it up here before I took it down to Kansas City, and I almost gave them my QNAP and just told them that that's what I got them because I was like, they would never know. No, you can't do that, right?
No, you totally can't.
No, I totally could have.
Hey Jim, the other thing that I'm starting to get the itch to build another machine. I'm sure Christian's out there. He'll probably be feeling the same way. But think about a 4K capable home theater PC, right? Because the UHD, the Ultra HD drives are available for PC now, and I think was it PowerPC actually has the UHD software, and the video cards are there. So it's, and of course storage is
Why not just an Xbox One X?
Yeah, but again, this learner thing.
I know. I gotcha.
Yeah. I don't learn nearly as many new words as I do when I build a computer.
And you can't build it yourself. You can't build an Xbox One X yourself. But of course, that announcement is out, and some pretty cool hardware in that thing. And it'll be interesting to see. Not a major rev, a major hardware rev. I don't think the software is going to change much, but they've been doing a lot on Xbox. So
and the cool part about that is they've kept the same. The person who has that new system with all the new power, we're going to be able to play the same game, and we can still play with each other. But them as a prosumer can enjoy it like with, better graphics and everything, which is awesome, right? The fact that they didn't have to do what they've always done in consoles, which is, nope, cut off. We're going to stop making Xbox One games. We're moving to Xbox X games or whatever. I like the way that Microsoft handled that. And I hope that PlayStation follows suit and they all go that way. It's the right way to do it, right? Let the people who can only afford a $150 system play with the people who have a $700 system, and they just have different experiences. A 12-year-old kid doesn't care what the graphics look like if they look all insane and pro. He just wants to play the game with his friends. So I like it.
I actually was surprised it came in at the price point it did. I thought they were going to be.
Me too. I was shocked.
Way higher.
Shocked.
I was hoping for $100 less, but it's going to be interesting, right? So if you think about when the Xbox One first came out, it was the same thing. Right, they were $100 more expensive, but from what I hear, their experience is better now. The hardware's better than the Sony, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It's probably like the MB versus Plex thing, right? They're both great, but I'm an Xbox fan, and I think I'm actually gonna pick one of these up later in the year. I want to try it out, see the difference. And I'm not a huge gamer, but we don't have anything that plays 4K, so it seems like a good way to get into 4K, have the capability, and get a cool gaming system out of it. Being that option.
I was going to ask you guys what, we actually didn't talk about what kind of TVs we have, right? And
you don't want to know.
That's because I'm embarrassed.
Me too. Yeah, we'll go with what do you have?
So it kind of ties into where we were going with the Xbox One, right? So I still have my when Samsung announced that they were going to quit making plasma TVs a couple years ago. That was before the OLEDs came out. I had a Pioneer Kuro 55-inch, and I'd had it for many years. And at that point, then it's like, okay, it's time for a new TV. So I got a 65-inch Samsung Plasma, and I still have that. It's probably 3 or 4 years old now. So don't have a 4K TV, but I've been watching the OLED prices start to come down, and I've been taking little baby steps towards that transition. So I got an Xbox One S that will play Ultra HD, and I think a couple months ago, I upgraded my receiver. So I have a Denon 3300 receiver, which will pass through UHD now. And I got to tell you, too, I put a plug in for their calibration, their audio calibration that's built in the Odyssey. In my old Denon, it was good. The new one, markedly better. I just sit there. It's like, man, this sounds good. So now the last piece of this puzzle is the actual monitor. So I've been watching the LG 65-inch C7 prices come down, and they came out at $5,000, which is a lot for a TV. And they recently got down to $3,500. So it won't be too much longer till they're down around $3,000, and then maybe a Black Friday sale.
And you're barking about $100 on an Xbox One S.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Jeez, $3,000 for a TV. I buy. My TVs are in that $700 range. Yeah. That's kind of what when they get into the $750. We're running. It must be 6 or 7 year old Samsung. Probably second generation, and it. You know what? It does its job. Right now, yeah. We are not big TV. Sarah watches it. She loves it. She doesn't need any more. I do everything back here on monitors. And I'm not, if I'm watching a movie, I'm sitting in this chair watching it on the screen right here, right. And I just don't need that much.
Yeah. So again, for me, it's about the technology, the experience of playing around. Right.
Right on.
Ironically, I don't watch TV very much.
Well, you're a busy guy. John,
but when I do, man, it is so awesome.
John, great to finally get you on Home Gadget Geeks. I'm glad we could pull this off. We need to do this a little more often, and so we'll figure out ways to get that done. When we get Plex all the way in and working, and I think it's a replacement, we ought to do a big Plex show.
Oh yeah,
so think about that, and
we could have our spouses on, talk about how much wonderful Plex is when it's not giving the screen of death.
Do we really want Hannah, Sarah, and Kelly on the program? I don't know. I don't know. It would be interesting. I've had Sarah on once, maybe twice. I think I'm trying to think back to. I know at least once. She doesn't like to come on. Kelly would probably not want
to. So here's the question, right? We all get. Why can't I just watch TV?
Right.
Why can't I just turn on the light?
Can you just make it work? That's the deal. Well, I really do, one more thought on that Plex thing. I really do think when I can have her set recordings, play live programs, pause them, and have it work all from her phone, Chromecasting, boom, that PC is coming, that theater PC, for me, the theater PC is coming out. We're done. That's going to work. And I think that's going to work great. I think the phone is a really good device. Sit there, get it queued up on your phone, Chromecast to put the phone down, boom.
Yep. And phones are just going to get more powerful as well.
Yeah.
It's crazy the power they have now.
No, right on. I am alert. My Plex box is going to, it's a second generation Core i3 540 that's going to need, it's getting a little long in the tooth. It's probably 5 or 6 years old at this point, and it's great. And I don't know about you, but I put up a resource monitor from time to time and just kind of see how it's doing. And transcoding, it struggles. I mean, it definitely maxes it out.
So I was playing around the Plex settings the other day, and I think this was from the live TV, and you can adjust the transcoding level, right? And it's like low, medium, high, and it was like hurt my CPU was actually one of the settings.
That's the level. Yeah. I think I should probably check that, because that would probably be smart, because it'll still transcode it with quality. It'll just do it slower, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think the comm skip's the same way. I think I have comm skip set to only use a certain amount of power when it's doing the processing.
Yeah, I got to get into that a little bit more. That MCF, no, what's it? The buddy?
MCE buddy.
MCE buddy, $30 lifetime.
Yep.
Is that what it is?
You can get it for free. But if you want to get the donors version, $30, I think.
Yeah, that's super.
And then $10 for comm skip if you want the better version.
Yeah, and pay the money, right? So I messed around with MCE Buddy free for about a couple days, and I just said no, and it's just so much better.
Pay the money. They're worth it.
It's $30, Jim. $3,000 TV, $30 for the
$100 Xbox, $30 in software.
Yeah,
pay for that. It's totally worth it. Well, guys, hang around. Can you hang around for a little post show, John?
Oh yeah.
Will that work? Okay, good. Hang tight. We'll remind folks, if you want to support the show, if you want to do it through Patreon or Amazon affiliate link, you can do those both. Head out to theaverageguy.tv and just look for, on the right hand side, just look for either one of those boxes, and there's pretty easy instructions on how to get through. We want to thank those who are currently Patreon subscribers, and I think next week or 2 weeks we'll announce your names on there if you're doing that. And but thanks for doing that. We always appreciate it, and using that. I'm hanging out there most days, and I'll love to hear from you both ways. If you got some feedback for the program, that's great. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Of course, get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people you know and trust. One of them in the chat room tonight, Christian Johnson. Welcome to the program. Great to have him out here. He doesn't have a job. I mean, he has one job. So
he doesn't have a job. I mean, he has one.
Well, he's got
one job.
That's basically not like having a job at all for him.
Wow.
So
besides Maple Grove Partners.
Besides what he does. So if you want to hear about what Christian's doing Tuesday, come join us live, Cyber Frontiers, 8 p.m. Central. We'd love to have you come out. But of course, visit for hosting as low as $10 a month, and it's like everything. Like, he just takes care of you. MapleGrovePartners.com will get you there as well. It was great. I got to meet Gary too, by the way, the other half of the Maple Grove Partners. Just a great guy, even better in person than he is online. So it was great to connect with Gary. You can also listen to Home Gadget Geeks on the Android iPhone app. Don't forget, we got those out there as well. You can just find them. They're both available for free. Head out to homegadgetgeeks.com. Don't forget, LastPass is the sponsor. We're coming up on their renewal, so we'll see if they hang around for September or so. And but they are currently sponsoring the app, and it's the best way to listen live. And you know what? 10 of you do it every single week. So I'm always surprised when I get our Spreaker stats, and there's 10 of you out there on Spreaker. I was like, Mike, I had this fear all of a sudden that, like,
oh no, those 10 people aren't getting
it. It was just blank the whole way. I was just blank inside. So anyways, we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Got a couple great shows for you coming up. Aaron Lawrence is back next week. Hey, how good was Veronica Belmont the week before? John, sorry you had to follow Veronica.
Yeah, thanks.
But Veronica was a great show. This was more fun because it was great having you on.
And thanks to Veronica for warming up the crowd, right?
Yeah, totally. She was the warm-up act. You're the main guy. But great connecting with Veronica. But Aaron is back next week, and Mike's out. So we'll have a guest host. Shauna Dorsey's coming on to be a guest host with that for the week. And then Mike and I are back on the 29th. Mike, that's a you-me show, by the way, just you and me.
No pressure.
We're going to update some folks on what's going on. And then an all-star cast of Brian Freelander's coming back. He'll have that. He's ordered that Amazon show. Oh. And so he will have that in his hands, and we're going to talk about that when he comes on. Amber's back the next week with LastPass. Mike and Mark are on to talk about grilling the week after that. And guess what I got in the mail today? I got my hickory smoked pellets for my smoker. Yes, indeed.
The best.
So get your grills out, boys. Time to start talking grilling. And of course, we're all into that as well. John, I know you are as well. And what's the last thing you smoked, John?
So actually so the last thing I smoked, usually we do a pork butt because that never fails, right?
Right.
And
crowd pleaser.
Yeah, July 4th, I'm actually getting ready to do a brisket. It'll be the first overnight brisket that I've done.
Nice.
We'll see how that turns out.
Nice. I wish I lived closer.
Yeah. Well, hey, come on down. Bring your TV. We'll calibrate it while the thing's smoking. Right?
Get off the airplane with a big TV on my shoulder and knife and fork in my hands. Going to John's house. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at the Average Guy TV Live. A lot more fun if you come in the chat room. And thanks to everybody who is out there listening in chat. We'll be back next Thursday. And with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.